Any woman who became pregnant was to be executed along with her husband. He wasn't just a king, he was a hurricane in human form, a military genius who redrew the map of southern Africa with blood and iron, feared by his enemies and even by his own people. His name alone could make armies tremble. This is the story of Shaka Zulu, the man who forged an empire from a handful of scattered clans. Born in 1787, Shaka's life began in the shadows. As the illegitimate son of a Zulu chief, he was cast out, an outcast with no claim to power. Raised by his mother's people, he grew up with a fire in his belly and a single burning promise to himself. One day he would return and claim the throne that was rightfully his. Back then, the Zulu were simple herders, not warriors. If you had a problem with your neighbor, you'd settle it with a few cows, not a spear. Spears were for hunting dinner, not for starting wars, but Shaka saw things differently. He saw potential where others saw peace. He took the long, clumsy hunting spear and chopped it down into a short, deadly stabbing weapon called the iklwa. He forced his men to train barefoot on thorny ground, turning their feet to leather and their spirits to steel. He developed the famous buffalo horns formation, a tactic so brilliant it could encircle and crush armies twice its size. Shaka was a relentless drill sergeant. He demanded absolute perfection. Warriors weren't allowed to marry until they had proven their bravery in battle. Entire regiments could be punished for a single soldier's mistake. It was brutal, but it worked. Through a terrifying mix of charisma and fear, he turned 1,500 herders into a disciplined killing machine of 50,000 warriors, exploding the Zulu territory from a tiny 10 square miles into a massive 200,000. With his new army, Shaka was ready to settle old scores. In 1818, the powerful Ndwandwe clan, his old rivals, stood in his way. But Shaka was a strategist, not just a brute. He didn't charge them head-on. Instead, he sent his elite soldiers to the Ndwandwe capital under the cover of night. They marched in, singing Ndwandwe victory songs. Hearing the familiar tunes, the villagers, mostly women and children, poured out of their homes, thinking their own warriors had returned victorious. They ran out to celebrate, straight into a perfectly laid trap. By the time the Ndwandwe army realized they'd been tricked, their capital was lost and their families were gone. Shaka had outsmarted them completely, securing his undisputed control over the Zulu Kingdom. Shaka's reign was absolute. Tribe after tribe was faced with a simple choice: join the Zulu Empire or be wiped from existence. By 1819, nearly everyone in the region had bent the knee. This period of intense warfare and forced migration, known as the Mafeking or the Crushing, sent shockwaves across southern Africa, displacing entire populations and reshaping the political landscape of the continent forever. He wasn't just conquering land, he was rewriting the destiny of a people. But even the most powerful men have a breaking point. When Shaka's beloved mother Nandi died, his world shattered. Grief consumed him, twisting his mind. He issued bizarre and extreme decrees. For an entire year, no crops were to be planted. No milk, the staple of the Zulu diet, was to be consumed. Any woman who became pregnant was to be executed along with her husband. His mourning became a reign of terror, and his once calculated rule dissolved into erratic cruelty. His people, who had followed him through fire and war, now lived in fear of his grief-stricken whims. A king this mighty, this feared, could only be brought down from within. In 1828, while Shaka was distracted, his own half-brothers saw their chance. They ambushed him, and the great warrior king who had built an empire fell not in battle, but to a traitor's blade. His reign of terror and triumph was over. Yet, his legacy was indestructible. He had taken a small, insignificant clan and forged it into one of the most powerful indigenous empires in African history. But here's a thought that keeps me up at night. What if Shaka had used his genius differently? Imagine if he had united the tribes of southern Africa not through conquest, but through diplomacy. What if he had built a massive unified shield to defend the continent, instead of a sword to conquer it? Could a united Africa under a leader like Shaka have resisted the European colonial powers that arrived just a few decades later? Let me know what you think in the comments. This is a debate that could go on forever. And if you think Shaka's story is incredible, wait until you hear what we've got next. We're diving into the history of the Dahomey Amazons, an all-female army so ferocious they made European soldiers tremble in their boots. These are the real-life warrior women you never learned about in school. So hit that subscribe button and ring the bell, because history is about to get a whole lot more interesting. Thanks for watching.